What's going on, everybody? My name's Cam. Welcome to the Unlimited channel. In today's video, we're actually heading up to the mountains of Arizona to acquire a skill that I've been intending to learn since, I don't know, since forever, but never figured it out. But today's the day we're gonna tackle this thing. And what we're gonna be learning is how to make a fire with nothing more than friction and sticks. Let's head up. It's about a 4-hour drive, so we got a ways to go. So one thing to make note of is, short of pine trees, I know the names of none of this stuff. So I'm not really a woodsman by any stretch. I'm not a woodsman. I don't know the name of this kind of tree or that kind of plant. I did some research on YouTube. I got a book on gathering tinder and things of that nature and what to look for. So I'm out here doing my best. So let's talk about the tools I'm going to be using today to gather fuel and to create the friction fire. First off, I'm going to be using my a rather large camp knife. This is a fixed blade. This is the Tops Prather War Bowie. This is the knife I use all the time. It's my favorite. And then I'm also using this, which I just got, the Silky Gomboy. This is just a little foldable saw. I mean, I'm carrying this thing in my back pocket, and we're gonna get to work figuring out this friction fire thing. More wind. I don't know, I'm worried that, I was trying to get away from all the pine trees, because from the research that I have done so far, pine is the worst for friction fire because it's so full of sap. And I was looking everywhere for anything other than pine, and I couldn't really find it. This had like these, I don't know what these are called, juniper? I don't remember what they're called. So when it comes to making fire, whether you're starting fire with a match or a lighter, or you're going hardcore and you're gonna do friction fire, first thing we gotta do is gather our fuel. Now, when it comes to making fuel, the tinder bundle is arguably one of the most important aspects of this process. What you're looking for is dry, fibrous material, similar in consistency to a cotton ball or dryer lint. Now, you're gonna look low, of course you're gonna look high, for anything that's dry, like bark, grass, moss, whatever. Now, I don't really know what to look for. This here is on the ground, but it looks dry right now. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of this grass here. And the idea is to be able to bunch it up into a softball-sized bird's nest, just like this. And hopefully, this stuff will light up like your butt after a dinner of Carolina Reaper wings. Good luck. Now that we got our bundle, we need to secure our small fuel. This fuel is comprised of small, dry sticks, ranging in width from the size of a coffee stirrer to a marker. Again, from my research, I need to find extra dry sticks to ensure easy ignition, pull from dead wood on downed logs, or dead standing trees. Another option here is to use the log that you're gonna have for your large wood, and then baton the sticks down into smaller, finer fuel. Another note, the small stick stage is also where the infamous feather stick is gonna be used. So if you're into all that feather sticking stuff, now's the time to bust out them skills. And now it's time to gather the large fuel, aka logs or sticks, or more commonly referred to as firewood. It just rained, so now although it's down, my understanding is what you actually want is trees that are up. So this has a much better chance of being dry. Now, I gotta mention, it's easiest to process your small sticks from the large wood. I learned this the hard way after pretty much wandering around for hours, trying to find sticks, carrying them to my spot, and wandering back, getting more sticks, when I could have just spent time finding one good, large, dry, dead standing log that I can get my small sticks, my large fuel, and my bow drill materials from. So, what have we learned? One long, large, dry log or dead standing tree is all you need other than the tinder bundle. From here, we're gonna saw the logs into 2-foot lengths. Then we're gonna baton those logs into fourths. From those individual fourths, you can process down into the small sticks. And then for the longer burning fuel, we're gonna baton the logs into halves. Or if we want even longer burning fuel, just leave the logs whole. Alrighty, our firewood is prepped. Time to start working on the bow drill. Starting with the spindle. Using my saw, I cut a 1 foot length from my log. Then I'm gonna baton away the outside of the log, exposing the center. I made mine about 1.5 inches thick. Then I whittle the stick into a round dowel that ends up being about 3/4 of an inch thick, or about as thick as your thumb. That's the information I got. That's about how thick it should be. On one end, I carve a blunt round tip. This side will spin against the hearth, creating something called the dust. So maximum friction is the goal. On the other end, I whittle it into a fine point. This end goes into something called the bearing block, which we're going to talk about right now. The bearing block is simple. It lets the spindle spin freely. A rock or wood will work, but ideally it's going to be slippy so that no friction is created on the spindle. I tried literally rubbing green leaves into both the wood and the rock block, trying to reduce the friction as much as possible. In the end, we'll see if it works. And last but not least, we need to assemble our bow. Gonna look for a curved branch. Ideally, it's made from green, alive wood. But in my case, the branch was dry and dead, just like Will Smith's career. JK, Will, I love you. When's your next movie coming out? The next thing that I saw a lot of the people that make bow drills all the time do is they would put a notch up here, and then they're putting a notch here so that you could just wrap the string through it simply. Now, the question is with the wrap. The people that make the best friction fires, they do, 2 loops. If you're looking at it from the backside, it looks almost like 3 loops. And with that tension, I want to get like a gauge so that I can figure out how big your loop should be to hold that. So knowing I'm going to do it that way, you can loop this in your notch here, like this, and then you're just going to check. You're going to pull slack to 4 fingers where it's coming out. That doesn't look like that's quite enough. 4 fingers, that looks pretty good. So now that I got that in there, I'm just kind of wrapping this tight as I can. Now it looks pretty good. And let's get started on the hearth board. To ensure that the wood is going to work for our hearth, we're going to use something called the fingernail test. Essentially, take a piece of wood, drive your fingernail into the wood. If your fingernail makes a mark, the wood is soft enough to hopefully allow you to create an ember. The hearth board is made by splitting your log in half. Then you're going to baton it again to make a flat board. Use your knife to flatten the board, smooth it. You can use some hacking and chopping motions. All you're trying to do is create a smooth, flat board. Now, once you have your hearth board flattened out, we need to put the actual, I don't know the term for it, but we need to set the notch up. So you start just by using your knife or your blade, and you're gonna kind of hand drill a starting point. Once you have that done, you're gonna grab your spindle, and you can just use your hand to create the indentation, or you can put it in the bow drill and your bearing block and actually spin it to create the indentation. Now that the indentation is created, we need to carve out the notch. And from my understanding, the notch needs to be as wide as the divot, and you want to take it to essentially the center of the, I'm calling it the divot. I don't know what else to call it. I'm sure there's some kind of term for it. But once you have all that done, in theory, this thing should be ready to start making fire. But before we can make fire, we need to prep that fire pit. And all I'm doing is clearing a space, and then I'm going to set up some rocks to protect the fire from wind. Once we got that, we're going to start setting this new fire pit that I saw from, I think his name is the Gray Bearded Green Beret. I can't remember. I saw it on YouTube. It's brilliant. What I'll do is you stack the small sticks at the front, or in the middle, and then you're going to put the bigger sticks at the back. And, you can also see I put my feather sticks or some punky wood on the little sticks. And the idea is that I can literally lift the fire pit so that I can stuff the tinder bundle underneath. All right, let's make some fire, hopefully. God, the phone's always ringing. So originally I was going to chop this thing down and edit it into like a short burst, but I feel like it would be more beneficial for this to let this part just run so that you can see some of the actual struggles that I'm going to go through. That just feels like the best bet to me. So on this first attempt, you're going to notice and you're going to hear the squeaking, and there's just a whole series of things that essentially are going to go wrong here. I'm not holding the spindle straight up, which doesn't create even friction, which causes its own set of problems. Also, after doing some research after the fact, apparently this first attempt, especially with pine, which is a very pitchy wood, this first attempt is really, it's unlikely that it would ever work the first go around, because I actually need to heat up both the hearth and the spindle. So the heat will, I guess, dry the sap, which will make future attempts more likely to work out. But no matter which way you spin this, apparently pine is the absolute most difficult wood to get an ember from, because it has so much pitch in it.
Okay.
And you can see I'm frustrated here. I'm terrified that this isn't going to work. I drove all the way up here, and in my mind I'm going, damn it, is this going to work? But I'm giving it another shot. I didn't change anything, but I'm trying again, which is crazy. If something doesn't work the first time, you need to make some kind of adjustment. And this time I'm really going for it. But you can see that my form has gotten better. I'm not stumbling around as much, so I've already improved. And notice that the bearing block is smoking more than the hearth is. And I'm frustrated again.
Getting more goddamn flame.
And I think, so I've decided that bearing block isn't working. Got to get a rock. And also I've decided that I need to thin up the spindle. It just seems like it's too big. It's creating too much friction. And it turns out that my choice here was correct. If you're having a hard time with ignition, make the spindle a little bit narrower, apparently. And then now I'm cutting off the char so that it has better friction.
I'm making the tip smaller.
And I promise you, I'm looking at this, it looks like I'm going to cut myself, but I'm not going to.
It's hard to know if it's an issue with my technique or if it's actually the issue with the wood. So I need to figure that out.
So I've grabbed the rock for the bearing block. I have not jammed leaves into it yet, so it's going to create a crap ton of friction. It will very rapidly sand the top of my spindle down. And you can hear it squeaking. That's like the first indicator that the wood is just really, it's wet. There's a lot of pitch in there. But look at me, I'm really going for it. And there we go. So that's giving me some, what I'm trying to do is get the squeaking to stop. I'm hoping that it will. And I'm pushing, dude. At this point, I don't know if I'm going to fart, crap my pants, or pass out. It starts getting real exhausting. Like I'm doing the same thing. No dust is being created. It's barely smoking, but I just keep going. Which, in hindsight, that was crazy because it wore me out for future attempts. But, again, I do think that this is actually heating up the hearth and the spindle. But you can hear me huffing and puffing. Oh, so tired. At this point in my mind, I'm thinking that this isn't going to work. No dust. See that? No dust came out of the hearth. That's not a good sign.
But it is starting to blacken. So at first it was more of a light brown. Now even in here.
So, yeah, and my understanding is that the dust, you do want it to be essentially char dust. So if the dust is coming out light brown, something's wrong. You're looking for that charred black dust. Clearing that off again. And I make this first notch here, but then I think I decide to move closer to the end of the hearth, to the other side of it. And now I'm putting the leaves in the bearing block there to try to create some kind of lubrication for the spindle. All right, now I'm setting the notch. I don't know what to call it, man. I hate it when I don't know the terms for stuff. It frustrates me. And the camera is just having crazy focus issues here. I'm so focused on the work right now that I'm barely paying attention to the camera, but I'm sort of paying attention to it. One thing I'm noticing is that I can see dust there, so that's giving me hope. So now I'm notching her out. It's a pretty straightforward affair. This wood is so sappy, though. It squeaks even when I run the knife over it. And this whole time in my mind, I'm going, God, I need to go find a different wood. That's like all I'm thinking right now. Need to find a different wood. And this notch is just absolutely kicking my butt. I'm just exhausted right now. But you can see, I think looking at it now, that notch is very narrow, but I do got it nice and centered. And now I just did some old man shit, and I jammed my knee into a rock there. So now I've decided to change my style, and I'm actually standing up and just bending over now. And I did find that it was actually much easier to just stand up. The only problem was I was having a harder time stabilizing my hand with the bearing block on my shin. So the spindle moves a little bit more when I'm standing up, which was fine. But yeah, you can see right there, the spindle's kind of bouncing all over the place. I'm not able to stabilize it as well the way I'm standing. You'll notice that there is dust building up this time. You can barely see it, and I wish I'd gotten a better angle, and it's out of focus. But I see the dust, so that's giving me hope. So now I'm really driving in. I'm trying to create as much dust as possible. And it is smoking. And I just crapped out. And now I'm bearing down. I'm trying to create that coal. Or that ember, whatever you call it. So you can see now I'm really pushing it. I'm just trying to ignite the dust. And I almost passed out. I'm in the middle of the heat. The sun is bearing down on me. I'm miserable right now. I'm trying to get through this, but I'm miserable. The ember, it looks like it ignited. I'm feeling good about this. In my head, I'm going, holy shit, I did it.
Okay.
I've got this. So this is exciting.
It does look like we got one.
And you can tell, look, there is an ember there. It's smoking. So we did it. We actually did it.
I'm just letting the wind. Holy crap, Ola.
Second attempt, and I got it to work.
So.
Just to be clear, I took long breaks in between each one
tinder
because
bundle.
it absolutely wears you out.
I hope we got this. I'm just grabbing my tinder bundle, and I'm gonna.
Listen to me, I can barely talk. It's pathetic.
Ember right inside there, and hopefully.
But this is exciting for me. Like I feel like this thing is gonna just go up in flames, man. I got this finally. Very triumphant, but also exhausted. So my excitement is not where it should be.
I don't know. I think it went out.
And for some reason, and I don't know what the reason is, it did not work. It didn't take. So I saw the ember there. I saw it. It was ignited. But for some damn reason, it just did not ignite the tinder bundle. The tinder was dry. The driest stuff I could find in the area. So I don't know. I'm not sure what I did wrong here.
I don't know.
And I'm going to take a very long break. Woo. Now I've made another notch, and this is going to be yet another attempt. And you can see I'm standing up this time, trying to find the best way to stabilize the bearing block on my shin, which you can barely see. My camera work on this isn't great. And one thing that you will notice is that I've gotten better at kind of moving the bow. And as I say that, I'm wrong. But I'm more efficient at moving the bow back and forth now, even though it doesn't look like it. Maybe I'm not. It's an awkward situation the whole way around, trying to find the perfect posture and everything. But one thing that is giving me hope right now is there's a lot less squeaking going on, so that's building my confidence. And as I'm moving it, there's some smoke coming, and now I think right there you can start to see, I'll try to zoom in on the video, you can see the dust is blacker than any of the other ones, and it's starting to build up in the notch. And on this one, I made the notch much wider than the other two. And now I've filled it in, and I think here any minute now you're going to see like, yeah, there we go. So now I'm pushing, and now I'm trying to ignite that stuff because I feel like there's enough of it. And this time I do not move the spindle. I'm letting everything just sit, and I'm just looking to see if that dust is smoking, if smoke is coming out of it. Because I can't see an ember. But when I lift it, and I let it set for a second, and I'm kind of letting the wind do its thing, and then I get scared that there's too much wind. You know, so I just don't know really what to do, but the smoke is coming, and I think about right there is when I saw a little bit of red. I could see the ember in the dust. So I'm letting it grow even more. You can't see it on video, but you can see the red ember there without a shadow of a doubt. So in my head, I'm going, oh shit, I got this one. But again, see how I'm way more cautious this time. I'm trying to let as much of the dust turn into an ember as possible. And what I found is the dust is loose, but when the ember starts working, it kind of pulls the dust into itself, and it becomes a hard little, it's like a hard little coal almost. So now we got it. I lift it up off the thing. I'm putting it into the tinder bundle much more cautiously this time. And the ember just feels better all the way around than the last one did. It's thicker, it's smoking more, and I can actually see red. Oh, I wish I had gotten better angles on this. But in this time you can see I'm just letting it sit there. I'm not fussing with it. I'm kind of letting the wind create some oxygen there. I'm not blowing on it yet or anything. It's just like a baby bird. I'm holding this thing like a baby bird in a nest. I'm being super careful with it. Don't want to crush it. And I'm sort of letting nature take over right now because I don't know what to do. But I can see the smoke, and that's good enough for me. So, and of course I take it out of camera here. But at this point, I'm like, oh, goodness gracious, it's going to ignite. I can feel that it's going to ignite. It just needs a little bit of oxygen. So what I'm going to do is blow on the tinder bundle now. And there it is, babies. We did it. Holy crap. On my third attempt, we got fire with sticks. Woo! I'm sure that I'll get more efficient at prepping, and you know, I learned a lot of lessons in how to get all my stuff set up more efficiently. But at the end of the day, it's a huge accomplishment, and Daddy is feeling good right now.
The myth or the rumor is that it's very difficult to do this with pine wood. But we were able to find some really good dry pine. Things got easier when I made this tip here smaller. Now it's about as thick as my thumb, maybe about 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch thick, something like that, whereas at first I think it was like a full inch. I made this notch substantially bigger. You can see these ones. This one almost ignited, but it just didn't. So I made this one like way wider. I was getting nervous there for a second that we weren't going to be able to do it, but we did it.